All of a sudden, they look out in the water and they see someone walking. And their initial gut response is they're freaking out. They say, it's a ghost. It's a phantasma. Now, what's interesting is that they didn't scream out, oh, look, it's a Pneuma. It's a spirit. Or it's an unclean spirit. Or, hey, look, it's a Daimonion. It's a demon. They didn't use that word. They used the Greek word phantasma. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Tat2d Preacher Podcast. This is episode number 51. Hope you are all doing awesome today. In this episode, we are going to be talking ghosts. And I want to look at the question, are ghosts just demons, or are they their own entity? And as always, going to be looking at this from a biblical perspective. So that's where we're going in this episode. Now, growing up in a pastor's home, I grew up in my dad was a Pentecostal pastor, Pentecostal charismatic pastor. And so I guess that kind of upbringing will be different than, let's say, you grew up in a more Reformed theological household, especially when we look at the unseen realm, the spiritual world. But for me, growing up in that kind of household, everything that was demonic, whether, like, let's say I at nighttime woke up, I saw something. My sisters and I, many times growing up, we would see things in the night, shadow people. My one sister would always see these like small little midget men with like top hats on. Now, my parents would always say, oh, it's just demons. Everything demonic that we saw, it was just a demon. And then you hear all of these crazy stories about, people going and visiting sites where wars took place. And there's all of these reports of people seeing these visions, or what looked like the people that were fighting in the wars, even though it happened 200 plus years ago, they would see these soldiers decked out in their military gear walking around, but only, at those sites where they were unalived on the battlefield. Or you hear of these haunted houses where someone who may had lived there previously, who maybe either was unalived in the home or just passed on in the home, but their spirit, their ghost haunts that house. Now, with all of these stories growing up, we were just told, oh, it's just demons. There's no such thing as ghosts. Anything demonic was just a demon. So if you saw someone from your family that has passed on, just a demon. And so demons could shapeshift. Demons could, manifest in different ways. They could take on different human form. They could do all this kind of stuff. It was just demon. Demon was this one-size-fits-all description for anything demonic. Now, if you've been following me for any length of time, either on the podcast or on YouTube, I've done a lot of podcasts and YouTube videos on what I think demons are. And so I don't hold to that, even though I grew up as I get older and as I've learned and studied a lot more, I believe demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. So Genesis chapter 6, We see that there were these fallen angels, these watcher angels came to earth, mated with human women, created this hybrid offspring known as the giants, known as the Nephilim. So they were part divine, part human. So when they died, either in their own battles and wars, or more predominantly in the flood that God sent, and even post-flood, when they died, because they were part human, part divine, when they died, their spirits were, in a sense, trapped on the earth. They couldn't fully go to the afterlife, heaven or hell, because there was still a divine part of them. So their human part, their physical body died, but because they were part divine, they were trapped. And so they were left, as we read in the book of Enoch, roaming the earth, tormenting humanity. It's their role. And this is who Jesus came into contact with in the Gospels, where he was casting out all of these unclean spirits, all of these demons. They were the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. So holding to that belief that I hold to, that many other people hold to, when we're talking about ghosts, are ghosts simply disembodied spirits of the Nephilim that are hanging out in random spots, maybe where there was an ancient battle, and they just stay in that same area, and they just take on the form of soldiers that have passed on, and just walk around at night so people can look at them and get freaked out? Would the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim just haunt a specific house, just stay in this particular house, in this particular area, just for decade after decade after decade? Like, is that what's happening? Or is ghosts, these visions, these apparitions that people are seeing, are they something different altogether? And again, I don't have the definitive answer on this. I mean, could demons, I don't know their capability. I mean, these Nephilim creatures, when they were on the earth, they were the men of old, heroes of old, men of renown. They were the giants. So whatever abilities they could possess, could they shapeshift in a spiritual form? Could they take on the form of humans that have passed on? I don't know. Could be. But I think what I want to look at is I don't necessarily think, again, I could be wrong. So I'm not a scholar, I'm not a theologian, but I think that ghosts are a separate entity than demons. This is what I think. And I'm going to get there through looking at some texts in the scripture. Now, the word ghost, for example, it doesn't appear a lot in the scripture. There's a verse in the Old Testament in Isaiah 19, verse 3, where, depending on the translation that you're reading, that word ghost could be found. So, for example, the NASB translates, and I'm going to read it so Isaiah 19:3 in the NASB says this. It says, "Then the spirit of the Egyptians will be demoralized within them, and I will confuse their strategy so that they will resort to idols and ghosts of the dead, and to mediums and spiritists." So we see the NASB translators use the word ghost there. But we also see in the ESV that same word is translated the sorcerers, not ghosts. And the NIV, that word ghost is translated the spirits of the dead. The NET, the Net Bible, the spirits of the dead. The CSB translates that word as ghosts, like the NASB. So the Hebrew word behind this word ghost, spirits of the dead, is a word that speaks to the idea of some kind of disembodied spirit. And so it's a very kind of general term that's used. But again, there's a wide range of meanings that it can be translated as. So that's why you get ghosts, spirits of the dead. Spirit, ghost, in a lot of ways is interchangeable. It's synonymous. And so that's why, people, when they think about ghosts, they can be called spirits. They're very similar. But in the New Testament, the word ghost, where it's described as a noun, describing a specific thing in the noun form, is only found 2 times. And what's interesting about this word, the Greek term behind that word is the Greek term phantasma, where we get the word phantom, where we get the word apparition. And what's interesting is in the Old Testament, or in the New Testament, people like to think, right, ghosts are just demons. The Greek word for demon is the word daimonion, not phantasma. And then also the word spirit, when we see the term unclean spirit, so we see the word demons or unclean spirit, that's the word pneuma. So the Greek word for spirit is pneuma. And then we have the word phantasma, which is translated as ghost, apparition, which we only see 2 times in the New Testament. And so I want to look at this story because this is where the point I'm trying to make is that it could very well be that they are 2 separate entities. So in Matthew 14, verse 26, and in Mark 6:49, it's the same story. It's the story where Jesus is walking on the water. And so I'm going to read verses 22 to 27 just to give context here. And so it says, immediately afterward, he compelled the disciples, Jesus, to get into the boat and to go ahead of him to the other side. And while he sent the crowds away, after he sent the crowds away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. And when it was evening, he was there alone. But the boat was already a long distance from the land, battered by the waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the 4th watch of the night, he came to them, walking on the sea. When the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It is a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." And so that word there, ghost, is the Greek word phantasma. So it's only found here and in the parallel account in the Gospel of Mark. So the disciples, middle of the night, on the water, rowing from one side to the other side. And all of a sudden, they look out in the water and they see someone walking. And their initial gut response is they're freaking out. They say, it's a ghost. It's a phantasma. Now, what's interesting is that they didn't scream out, "Oh, look, it's a pneuma. It's a spirit. Or it's an unclean spirit. Or, hey, look, it's a daimonion. It's a demon." They didn't use that word. They used the Greek word phantasma, meaning apparition or specter. Now, that word in, what's his name here? In Bruce Barton's Matthew commentary, he writes this. The Greek word for ghost used here is phantasma, meaning an apparition or specter. Now, that word specter is an old school word. And in the dictionary, the word specter means a visible disembodied spirit. So the Greek word that was used for ghost is the word phantasma, meaning apparition or a visible disembodied spirit. Now, they didn't use the word pneuma. They didn't use the phrase unclean spirit. They didn't look out and say, look it, oh, it's a daimonion. It's a demon. It's an unclean spirit. They used the word ghost. Now, why is that? 3 different words they could have used there to describe what they saw. So could it be that ghost in their worldview and their perspective is a different entity altogether? See, if it was me, if I'm on the water and let's say middle of the night and I'm rowing a boat and I'm looking out on the water and I see someone walking on the water towards me, my default response, my gut reaction to that is, number one, I'm going to be freaked out. But number two, I'm going to be like, yo, that's a demon. It's some demonic entity walking towards me. Their gut response, their initial reaction wasn't to say, oh, it's some kind of Pneuma spirit or it's some kind of Daimonion demon. No. Their gut reaction, their default response was, it's a phantasma, it's a ghost. And so they, in that world, in that context, I mean, their supernatural understanding was so much more vast and complex than ours here in the West. And so the idea of demons, unclean spirits, all that stuff was just a part of their culture, a part of their worldview over there. It's not like here. And their initial reaction was ghost. And that word's only used 2 times in the New Testament. And I looked that Greek word up in the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Old Testament. And that word phantasma is only used 1 time in the Greek translation of the entire Old Testament. So it's a word that is very rarely ever used. Super uncommon word. But here, this was the word that they chose to use when they looked out on the water and saw someone walking towards them. Now, of course, it was Jesus. It wasn't an actual ghost. But that's the word that they chose. So what can we make from this? What can we gather from this? Could it be that apparitions, specters, visible disembodied spirits, could they be their own entity? Could they be their own supernatural entity that lives in the unseen realm? When we look at encounters and stories of people who go to ancient battlefields, and there's all these reports of people seeing, soldiers walking around in their attire, in their clothing from hundreds of years ago. Could they be apparitions of people who were once alive and are no longer alive? Could that be could it be them still, their spirit, their ghost of who they were? Could it be that they're just a demon who's masquerading, which is, the more common view? Or could it be a phantasma? It's another entity that lives in the unseen realm. That's neither the human spirit of the deceased person or a demon, but something different altogether. And so to me, once I saw that Greek word behind it, and you look at how that word is very rarely used, it's only found in that one story, 2 accounts in the New Testament talking about one story. And those disciples, they saw Jesus cast out thousands of demons, thousands of unclean spirits. They came into contact with a whole bunch of supernatural, demonic stuff. But yet, in this particular moment, when Jesus is walking across the sea on the water, and they're in the boat, and they look out, and they say, it's a ghost. It's a ghost. It's a phantasma. It's an apparition. It's a visible, disembodied spirit. That's not a demon. It's not a Daimonion. It's not an unclean spirit. They didn't say Pneuma. And so because there's so very few accounts of it being used, it's so very rare, and that's the wording that was used, it lends me to believe that it could very well be a different entity altogether. together. And so I think for me, where I stand right now on this subject, as I look at it, are demons, are they ghosts? Are ghosts just demons? I'm going to say no. I don't necessarily know what they are. This is just my speculation based on my limited Greek and my limited understanding as I look into this. But I think, as I've said in many other videos and podcast episodes, that the unseen realm is so much more complex, so much more different, so much more vast than I think we really understand. I think most Christians grow up with this belief that you have angels, demons, the devil, and Jesus, and that's it. And that's the camp. So everything good is an angel, everything bad is just a demon, and then you have the devil, and then you have Jesus. When in reality, there is so much more going on. There are so many creatures, entities, beings that people are seeing, that people are having encounters with, that can't just be a demon. And this is why I believe, man, there's so much more going on in the unseen realm. And so I'm not saying that we're ever going to completely figure it out and understand it all. No, but we have to expand our paradigm to be able to have discussions and to be able to think outside the box. And so even for this, it took me a while to stretch out my paradigm to be like, no, it's not just a demon. It's something different altogether. Well, what could that be? I have no idea, but it's different. And in the first century supernatural worldview, they had a category for ghost, for apparitions, phantasma. They had a separate category for that. That wasn't a demon, that wasn't an unclean spirit. And so if they had that kind of a category, then you and I have to have a separate category for that. And so when people talk about these encounters, these experiences that they're having where they're seeing these apparitions, they're seeing with ghosts, we can't just say, oh, it's just a demon, because it could be a disembodied spirit of the Nephilim, could be, but there's a good chance that it's not, and we have to have a separate category for them. So that's the little basic cursory study that I wanted to look at in this episode. Just something to think about. This is definitely a subject that I want to dive deeper in, but I thought I would just use this episode, make it a little short one, just to give some food for thought. Because I know growing up in the church, growing up even in Bible college, in Bible school, I didn't know that there was differences in these terms. I just assumed everything was just a demon. If you saw any kind of demonic entity, it's just a demon. Well, no. They had a different category for it. So, something to wrestle with, something to dive in deeper with. And yeah, let me know. Let me know in the comments section below if you're watching this on YouTube, what you think. Let me know of any other verses that I may have missed, or yeah, just let me know your opinions. Let me know your thoughts and what y'all think. Are ghosts, is a phantasma just a demon? Is that what you think? Or do you think that maybe they are a separate category? So let me know below. Well, thanks so much for listening and or watching to episode 51 of the Tat2d Preacher Podcast. Have an awesome rest of your day or evening, and we'll see you all in the next video. Much love, and God bless.